sat frozen in the glass-walled boardroom as Marcus Webb stood at the presentation screen, confidently unveiling Oralink, my 5-year project, as his own creation. The board members leaned forward, captivated by every word that came out of his mouth. Applause erupted around the mahogany table, echoing off the walls like thunder. Mr. Harrison, our CEO, called Marcus a visionary, praising his remarkable innovation and dedication to excellence. My chest tightened with each word of praise. My name wasn't mentioned once, not a single time in the entire presentation. I glanced at Marcus across the table, and he met my eyes with a smug smile that told me everything I needed to know. This wasn't a mistake or an oversight. He had planned this betrayal carefully, meticulously. My hands trembled slightly as I gripped my pen, forcing my face into a neutral expression while my entire world collapsed around me. 5 years of work, vanishing in real time. Marcus, this is truly extraordinary work, Mr. Harrison continued enthusiastically, gesturing at the screen displaying my algorithms, my interface designs, my code architecture, everything I had created from scratch. 5 years of dedication really shows in the quality of this system. The board is thoroughly impressed with your vision and execution. The other executives nodded enthusiastically, murmuring words of approval. Mrs. Campbell from operations actually stood up to shake Marcus's hand, her face beaming with admiration. I watched him accept their praise with false humility, making modest gestures while his eyes sparkled with triumph. My throat burned with unshed tears. 5 years of late nights, missed family gatherings, sacrificed weekends, and abandoned hobbies, all erased in one presentation. Then Mr. Harrison dropped the hammer that made my stomach sink even further. We're promoting you to Senior Innovation Director, effective immediately. Congratulations, Marcus. Marcus's smile widened as he shook hands with everyone. I forced myself to smile too, because nobody in that room knew I'd been recording everything on my phone hidden in my blazer pocket. 6 months earlier, everything had been completely different. I had been hunched over my desk, surrounded by 3 monitors displaying endless lines of code and design mock-ups in various stages of completion. Oralink was my baby, a revolutionary data management system that could transform how companies handled information security and data processing. I had poured everything into it, my expertise, my creativity, my soul. Marcus had walked into my office that Tuesday afternoon, coffee cup in hand, wearing his usual friendly smile that I'd foolishly trusted. "Emily, how's the project coming along?" he had asked, peering at my screens with what seemed like genuine interest and support. I had explained my latest breakthrough excitedly, showing him the prototype's new features and the elegant solution I'd found for the concurrency problem. He had asked detailed questions about the algorithm's structure, the data flow patterns, the security protocols. Looking back now with painful clarity, I should have seen it. The way he took mental notes, the calculating look behind his encouraging words, the way his questions probed for specific technical details. That same week, Marcus had sent me an email that should have raised bright red flags in my mind. "Emily, you've done amazing work on Oralink. Let me help you prepare the demo for the executive team next month. You focus on the technical side and perfecting the code. I'll handle the presentation aspect and the business messaging. That's what managers are supposed to do, right? Take some of the burden off your shoulders." I had felt genuinely grateful then, even relieved. Public speaking had never been my strength, and Marcus seemed supportive and helpful. I had thanked him profusely, sent over all my presentation files and documentation, and thought nothing more of it. How incredibly naive I had been, how trusting and foolish. The email sat in my inbox now like evidence of my own stupidity, but I had saved it. I saved everything, every email, every file, every piece of correspondence. That obsessive habit of documentation would soon become my greatest weapon against him, though I didn't know it yet. 2 weeks after that email exchange, Noah, my friend from the IT department, had knocked on my office door looking distinctly uncomfortable. He had glanced around nervously before stepping inside and closing the door behind him with deliberate care. "Emily, I need to tell you something, and you're probably going to think I'm paranoid," he had whispered, his voice tense with concern. "I've been monitoring system access logs, routine security stuff, part of my job, and I noticed something really weird. Marcus has been accessing your shared project files after hours. Multiple times, actually, like a lot. I had laughed it off, not wanting to believe anything sinister was happening. "He's probably just reviewing the progress reports," I had said dismissively. "He's my manager, after all, that's what managers do." Noah had frowned, clearly unconvinced by my explanation. "Maybe, but Emily, it's happening at 2, 3 in the morning. Does that seem normal to you? Why would he need to review files at that hour?" I had promised to be more careful, but internally I had dismissed his concerns completely. I didn't want office drama or paranoid conspiracy theories. The very next morning, Noah had appeared at my door again, this time carrying printed papers and looking absolutely grim. His expression made my coffee taste bitter. "I pulled the detailed access logs from the server overnight," he had said, spreading papers across my desk like a detective presenting evidence. "2 nights ago, at exactly 2:47 a.m., Marcus exported your entire source code repository. All of it, the core algorithms, the documentation, the design specifications, the test cases, everything." My stomach had dropped like a stone. I had stared at the access timestamps, the file names, the export records, the data transfer logs. It was all there in black and white, undeniable. "Why would he need complete copies of everything?" I had asked, though the answer was already forming in my mind like a dark cloud. Noah had shrugged helplessly, his face troubled. "I honestly don't know, but this isn't standard manager review behavior. This is systematic data extraction. Emily, you need to document this. Something's wrong." I had nodded slowly, my hands shaking slightly as the first seeds of doubt took root. Finally, I was beginning to understand that something was very wrong. The first real betrayal happened during a small internal meeting 3 weeks before the scheduled board presentation. Marcus had gathered our entire department team in the mid-sized conference room for what I had expected would be a routine progress update on various projects. Instead, I had watched in absolute shock as he displayed my interface mock-ups on the large screen, presenting them as collaborative team concepts we've been developing together over the past few months. My own designs, my own work, my own creative solutions. He hadn't even changed the color schemes or layout patterns I'd agonized over. People had nodded appreciatively around the table, taking careful notes, asking questions about features I had designed. When I had opened my mouth to speak, to claim ownership, to correct the record, fear had frozen my voice in my throat. What if I seemed petty or territorial? What if nobody believed me? What if it damaged my reputation? Marcus had glanced at me then, his smile sharp and knowing. "Emily, would you mind taking notes for everyone?" he had asked sweetly, his tone dripping with false kindness. The humiliation had burned through me like acid, leaving scars I still felt. The breaking point came unexpectedly on an ordinary Thursday afternoon. I had been walking past the employee break room when I had heard Marcus's distinctive voice through the half-open door. He had been talking to Kenneth, another department manager, in tones of casual camaraderie. "Emily's a good little worker bee," Marcus had said with a dismissive laugh that made my blood run cold. "She cranks out the code, doesn't ask questions, doesn't cause trouble, stays in her lane. Perfect for behind-the-scenes technical work. Some people are just made for the back office, you know." Kenneth had chuckled in agreement, adding fuel to the fire. "Not everyone has what it takes to be leadership material. The world needs worker bees." Their laughter had echoed down the hallway as I had stood there frozen, invisible and completely humiliated. Something inside me had snapped in that moment, something fundamental shifted. I had walked calmly to my car, driven home in complete silence, and pulled out a folder I had labeled proof, weeks earlier when Noah first warned me. I had started filling it that very night with screenshots, emails, documentation, and time-stamped records of everything. Over the next several weeks, I had become absolutely meticulous about documentation. Every code commit I made was documented with precise timestamps and detailed descriptions. Every email exchange was carefully archived in multiple locations. I had started recording voice memos to myself on my personal phone, narrating what was happening day by day, creating a diary of betrayal that might someday serve as crucial evidence. I had backed up everything to 3 separate encrypted drives stored in different locations. Then one evening, I had discovered something that made my blood run completely cold. Marcus had accessed the official project documentation repository on the company servers and had systematically deleted my name from every single file. Where it once clearly read primary developer, Emily Carter, it now read simply development team. Where my authorship had been explicitly credited, it now said collaborative effort. He was erasing me methodically and deliberately, preparing the ground to claim full ownership. This wasn't accidental. This was calculated theft. One night, alone in the dim parking garage after everyone else had left the building, I had sat in my car and finally allowed myself to cry. 5 years of dedicated work. 5 years of sacrificing my personal life, my health, my relationships, my hobbies, all vanishing like smoke in the wind. I had pounded the steering wheel with my fists, tears streaming down my face, feeling utterly powerless and defeated. The injustice of it threatened to consume me completely. But then something profound shifted inside me. The grief and despair transformed into something else, cold, focused, crystalline determination. I had wiped my tears away, opened my laptop with shaking hands, and reviewed my growing evidence folder. Everything was there, all the proof Marcus couldn't erase because he didn't even know it existed. I had looked at myself in the rearview mirror, my eyes red but resolute, and whispered fiercely, "You picked the wrong person to steal from Marcus." That was the exact night Emily, the victim, died, and Emily, the strategist, was born. Marcus had continued his elaborate performance flawlessly in the following weeks. In team meetings, he had praised me publicly for being supportive and collaborative, using fake kindness like an invisible leash to keep me compliant and quiet. He had assigned me meaningless documentation tasks and minor bug fixes while taking credit for every significant milestone I had achieved. I had played along perfectly, nodding politely, acting grateful for his mentorship and guidance. Inside, though, I was methodically building an airtight case against him. Then one afternoon, during a particularly boring status meeting, Noah had discreetly slipped me a folded note under the conference table. "Board wants full Oralink demo in 6 weeks. Harrison wants it fast-tracked." 6 weeks. That was my timeline now. 6 weeks to prepare for the confrontation that would determine everything. I had smiled pleasantly at Marcus across the conference table, and for just a brief moment, I had seen uncertainty flicker across his face. Maybe he had sensed something shifting in the dynamic between us. Maybe he had noticed the change in my eyes, the new confidence in my posture. I had started working late at the office again, but this time secretly and with a completely different purpose. I had rebuilt Oralink's entire prototype in a new private repository on my personal server, completely encrypted and protected with military-grade passwords Marcus could never access or guess. Every single file was timestamped with embedded metadata proving my authorship beyond any doubt. Then I had added something deeply personal, something he could never fake or steal even if he somehow discovered it. Deep in the code's core architecture, invisible to casual inspection or surface-level review, I had embedded my late sister Hannah's initials in a specific sequence. She had died 3 years ago from cancer, and this entire project had been partly inspired by her battle with hospital data systems. Those initials were my signature, my irrefutable proof, my tribute to her memory. Marcus could steal my files, delete my name from documents, claim my work as his own, but he couldn't replicate what he didn't know existed in the first place. Noah had helped me back up absolutely everything to an external encrypted drive that I kept at home. 2 weeks before the scheduled board meeting, Marcus had called me into his office with an air of casual authority. He had leaned back in his expensive leather chair, fingers steepled together, wearing his most patronizing expression. "Emily, I've decided I'll be presenting Oralink to the board myself," he had announced as if conferring a favor. "You understand, they need to hear from senior leadership, not technical staff. It's about optics and business strategy. But don't worry at all, your contributions will definitely be acknowledged appropriately." Acknowledged, not credited as the creator, not recognized as the architect, not identified as the inventor, just acknowledged like I had brought coffee to the meetings or organized the files. I had forced myself to nod with apparent disappointment but acceptance. Of course, Marcus. Whatever's best for the project and the company. Inside, though, I was already 3 steps ahead of him, planning every detail of his complete downfall with precision. He had smiled then, clearly satisfied with my apparent compliance and submission. He had absolutely no idea what was coming for him. The following week, Marcus had staged what I now recognized as his final major performance before the crucial board presentation. In a full department meeting with everyone present, he had stood before the entire team and delivered an emotional speech about Orlink being his most personal creation and his proudest achievement. He had talked passionately about late nights wrestling with difficult problems, moments of breakthrough and inspiration, the satisfaction of solving complex challenges, describing my experiences as if they were his own memories. People had applauded enthusiastically, clearly moved by his apparent dedication. Some had looked genuinely inspired by his words. I had clapped too, maintaining my mask of supportive enthusiasm while pure fury burned beneath my carefully controlled exterior. After the meeting ended, I had deliberately lingered near the door and overheard Mr. Harrison approach Marcus privately in the hallway. I had caught fragments of their conversation. Investors very interested. Major demonstration opportunity. Innovation award nomination. Marcus was being carefully positioned for glory and recognition. My glory, my recognition, and I was supposed to smile supportively and take notes in the background. Then came the email from Human Resources that made everything devastatingly real and concrete. Marcus had officially nominated himself for the company's prestigious Annual Innovator of the Year award. I had opened the nomination form with shaking hands and read the description. Sole creator and chief architect of the revolutionary Orlink data management system. Sole creator. Those two words had blurred on my screen as tears of rage threatened to fall. The award ceremony was scheduled for the exact same board meeting where he would present Orlink to the executives. He had planned to claim both the project recognition and the prestigious award in one decisive, crushing blow. I had printed the email, added it carefully to my growing evidence folder, and made a final decision. I was completely done being silent and invisible. I had immediately scheduled a technical preparation session with Mr. Harrison's executive assistant, politely explaining that I needed to ensure the demonstration software was properly configured. What I was really doing was ensuring that my version of Orlink, the version with all my embedded proof, would be loaded onto the presentation system. Marcus would present my work, but I would control exactly what the board would see when the moment came. Marcus had somehow found out about my meeting with the executive assistant. He had stormed into my office the next morning, his friendly mask completely dropped for the first time. "What were you doing meeting with Harrison's staff?" he had demanded, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. "What files did you give them? What did you tell them?" I had looked up calmly from my computer screen, my face deliberately neutral. "Just ensuring the demo runs smoothly from a technical standpoint." Standard preparation procedures. His jaw had clenched visibly, a muscle twitching. "I need to review everything you submitted to them. Give me full access to your files right now." I had smiled politely, my voice pleasant. "I actually revoked your administrative access to my systems this morning. IT security protocol clearly states that non-essential personnel shouldn't have administrative access to sensitive presentation materials before board meetings." His face had flushed an angry red. He had leaned threateningly over my desk, his voice dropping to something low and dangerous. "You're making a huge mistake, Emily. You're going to regret this decision." I had met his eyes steadily, without flinching. "I really don't think so, Marcus." The next morning, I had arrived at work early to find an email chain that made my hands shake with anger. Marcus had sent it late the previous night to HR, Mr. Harrison, and several other executives. In it, he had described me as emotionally unstable and exhibiting concerning behavioral changes. He had accused me of hoarding project data and refusing to collaborate effectively with management. He had suggested I was unable to handle the pressure and might need professional intervention. He was systematically trying to destroy my credibility and professional reputation before I could expose his theft. This was character assassination, pure and simple, a preemptive strike carefully designed to discredit anything I might say or any evidence I might present. For a long moment, doubt had crept into my mind like poison. Would anyone actually believe me over a senior manager with years of political capital? Then I had opened my carefully organized evidence folder and attached a single, devastating screenshot to my reply. Marcus's unauthorized access logs from 2:47 a.m., showing him extracting my entire code repository without any legitimate business reason. I had sent it to the exact same distribution list with just one line. Happy to discuss IT security protocols and proper data handling whenever convenient. Marcus had changed tactics immediately and dramatically. Suddenly he was friendly again, appearing at my desk with expensive coffee, asking cheerfully about my weekend plans, praising my incredible attention to detail. The shift was so obvious, and disturbing it made my skin crawl. He was desperately trying to manipulate me back into compliance and submission. 3 days before the crucial board presentation, he had casually suggested we should co-present the demo together to properly honor the whole team's contribution to this success. I had seen through his transparent strategy instantly. He wanted me there as a visible prop, as convenient evidence of collaboration, to legitimize his theft and make it seem like a team effort. "That's very generous of you, Marcus," I had said sweetly, my smile carefully practiced, "but I really think senior leadership should present alone. This is your moment to shine. You've earned it." His smile had faltered noticeably, confusion flickering across his face. He had wanted complete control over what I might say during the presentation. By politely refusing his offer, I had kept him guessing, kept him nervous and off balance. The night before the presentation, I couldn't sleep at all. I had reviewed my evidence folder for what felt like the 100th time. Timestamped code commits proving clear authorship, detailed email trails showing my work process, video journals I had recorded documenting my development process and problem solving, and the encrypted signature, Hannah's initials, embedded permanently in the code itself. Everything was meticulously organized in a master folder I had titled Orlink, Original Creator Proof. I had triple-checked my external drive's encryption and access protocols. Around midnight, physically and emotionally exhausted, I had finally closed my laptop. Then I had noticed something in my system's security logs that made my blood freeze in my veins. Someone had attempted to access my personal computer remotely at 1:14 a.m. the previous night. The login had failed, my new security protocols had successfully blocked the intrusion, but the attempt was clearly recorded in the logs. Marcus had actually tried to break into my system to delete or contaminate my evidence. The realization was chilling. He knew I had something. He was getting desperate. Which brought me back to this exact moment, sitting in the boardroom, watching Marcus bask in enthusiastic applause for work that was entirely mine. The board members were standing now, congratulating him warmly, shaking his hand. Mrs. Campbell was actually taking photographs for the company newsletter. Mr. Harrison was shaking Marcus's hand vigorously, beaming with pride. I sat perfectly still, my expression carefully neutral and supportive, while my heart hammered violently against my ribs. This was it. Everything I had planned meticulously for months came down to the next few crucial minutes. Then Mr. Harrison turned to address the full board. "Before we officially proceed with the promotion announcement, does anyone have specific technical questions about Orlink's architecture or implementation?" Brief silence filled the room. Then the board chair, Mr. Peterson, an experienced engineer himself, looked directly at Marcus with keen interest. "Can you explain in detail how the encryption algorithm handles concurrent access requests from multiple users?" Marcus's confident smile froze completely on his face. I watched with grim satisfaction as Marcus's face drained of all color. He had stolen my presentation slides, memorized my talking points and business benefits, but he didn't actually understand the underlying technology at all. "Well," he stammered awkwardly, "it's definitely a complex multi-layered approach that utilizes various industry standard protocols and best practices for." He trailed off weakly, gesturing vaguely at the screen as if it would somehow help him. Mr. Peterson's eyes narrowed with suspicion. The entire room had gone completely silent, the atmosphere shifting dramatically. Marcus cleared his throat nervously. "Perhaps Emily can provide the specific technical details since she handled some of the implementation work on the lower-level code." Some of the implementation work, lower-level code. My jaw clenched painfully. Mr. Peterson turned deliberately to me, his gaze sharp and assessing. "Ms. Carter, you built this system, correct?" The question hung heavy in the air. Every single board member was looking directly at me now, waiting. Marcus's expression was desperate, almost pleading, his eyes begging me to stay silent. This was the moment I had been preparing for. I could stay silent, keep my job, avoid confrontation and conflict, or I could finally tell the truth. I took a slow, deliberate breath and stood up, my legs steady. Yes, I built Orlink, every single component from the ground up. The encryption system uses a proprietary algorithm I personally developed that generates unique hash sequences for each access request, preventing concurrent conflicts through time-stamped priority queuing. The words flowed naturally and confidently because I knew every intricate detail intimately. Mr. Peterson nodded, clearly impressed by the technical sophistication. And can you explain the data redundancy protocols and failover mechanisms? I explained those two in detail, then described the automated backup systems, the user interface logic and design philosophy, the security architecture and threat modeling. With each detailed answer, the board members' expressions shifted noticeably. They were beginning to understand the truth. Mr. Harrison's face had gone pale, his smile vanishing. Marcus stood frozen like a statue, trapped between continuing his elaborate lie and admitting the devastating truth. Finally, after several minutes of technical discussion, Mrs. Campbell asked the question that changed everything. Ms. Carter, can you provide concrete documentation proving you created this entire system? I had waited 5 long years for exactly this moment. Yes, I absolutely can. I walked calmly to the presentation computer, my hands completely steady now, all nervousness gone. I plugged in my encrypted external drive, entered my password, and watched the screen change. Folders of evidence appeared. Code repository timestamped commits. Email archive, complete project correspondence. Video development journals. System access logs unauthorized activity. I opened the code repository first, displaying the file structure. Every single file showed my username, my precise timestamps, my detailed commit messages, dated back 5 full years in chronological order. Then I displayed the access logs Noah had provided, showing Marcus extracting my complete files at 2:47 a.m. without authorization. Audible gasps rippled through the boardroom. Finally, I said quietly but clearly, I embedded a personal digital signature in Orlink's core code. My sister Hannah died 3 years ago from cancer. I dedicated this entire project to her memory. I opened the source code and highlighted the hidden sequence buried deep in the architecture. HMC, Hannah Marie Carter. The room was completely silent. Marcus suddenly lurched to his feet, his chair scraping loudly. This is completely fabricated. She's lying. His voice was high-pitched and desperate, cracking slightly. She's trying to sabotage me because she's jealous of my promotion. This is a vindictive attack. But Mr. Harrison had already pulled out his phone, rapidly dialing a number. Within 5 tense minutes, Victor from the IT department was in the boardroom with his laptop, running comprehensive verification checks on my evidence. He examined the file metadata, checked the code repository timestamps against server logs, verified the email headers and routing information. Every single piece of data confirmed my authorship beyond any possible doubt. Victor looked at Marcus with visible disgust. This evidence is completely legitimate and unaltered. Ms. Carter created all of this work. The timestamps, metadata, and digital signatures are authentic. The boardroom erupted in tense whispers and shocked murmurs. Mr. Harrison's face had transformed into something cold and hard as stone. He stood slowly, his movements deliberate, and addressed Marcus in a voice cold enough to freeze water. You have exactly 10 minutes to clear your desk and leave this building. Marcus left the boardroom without another word, his shoulders slumped in defeat, his career shattered beyond repair. The office buzzed with shocked whispers and speculation for days afterward. Some colleagues congratulated me quietly in the hallways, others avoided eye contact entirely, embarrassed they had believed Marcus's lies so easily. HR called me in exactly 48 hours later. They offered me Marcus's old position, Senior Innovation Director, with a substantial salary increase and a formal written apology from the executive team. The Innovator of the Year award was officially reassigned to me with a special ceremony. The board issued a detailed public statement nomming me as Orlink's sole creator and architect. That afternoon, standing in what was now my spacious new office, I watched maintenance workers carefully remove Marcus's nameplate from the wall outside and replace it with mine. My phone buzzed with a message from Noah. "You did it! I'm so proud of you." I smiled, thinking of Hannah, of 5 years of dedicated work finally recognized and credited, of justice served not through anger or revenge, but through careful preparation and documentation. I whispered softly to Hannah's memory, "We did it together." Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's simply about refusing to let the truth stay buried forever.